And this is just consistently what I tend to do, is that I start to feel either like not worthy of like love or like I am only lovable if I'm being funny and fun and type A, because I am also the planner of the group. So like I plan a lot of stuff, and I just like hit a point where I was like, wow, I'm tired of planning. Like I'm tired of like organizing every part of my life.
And welcome to another episode of the Asian What?
The and was so long.
And in this corner, it's a Vietnamese American 40-something-year-old man who knows not who he is. And in the other corner, we've got
a 31-year-old Japanese American woman who tweeted about emotional breakdown this week.
Welcome to the Asian Not Asian podcast. We just came up with a new tagline, and I want you to do it.
Yeah, how about this, folks? Asian Not Asian, a podcast where two Asian people are your best friends.
Asian friends.
We're your Asian friends.
Yo, I love that. I really like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Very different from what we used to be, which was about buttholes.
Yes,
so,
and I refuse to say that word.
Hard left, or maybe not hard left.
Yeah.
Anyways, welcome to the podcast. It's a beautiful day. It's a little craziness right now.
So
in here,
chaotic.
there's literally like 5 different events happening inside of Canal Street Market. One of which is the Ube Festival, which is cool. It's very purple.
It's very cool, but who likes ube this much?
I think this ube thing is a little bit of a shorthand for Filipino stuff.
I see. I cannot believe the amount of people here at this time.
It's craziness. People love purple.
Yes.
And they love Filipino stuff. I'm into it. There's not that much ube. Well, no, there is a lot of ube foodstuffs. All this purple balloons everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's also lechon. There's also, little snacks like that. There's like some sort of like ube latte that they're giving out. There's a huge line outside.
It's packed.
It's nuts in here.
And there was a bunch of bikers outside for some reason, biking around.
Bikers?
No, on bicycles.
Oh, bicycles.
What do you call those? They're not bikers? Oh, bicyclists. That's right. Cyclists.
It's craziness, but we're still here. We're still doing the podcast, and we're going to have an awesome show. Before we start, we're going to very quickly give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you guys don't know what it is, Patreon is the best way to support the podcast. If you contribute to the Patreon, you get all sorts of little bonuses. We're having a Patreon hangout tomorrow, so it'll be too late by the time you listen to this, but we do things like that. We'll have a little Patreon. We have Patreon hangouts. We slide into your DMs. The other day, I slid into this dude's DMs to thank him, and we had like a full-on video back and forth, like just sending each other videos. Like, where are you, man?
Wait, to thank him for being part of the Patreon?
Yeah, to be part of the. I was like, hey, man, thanks very much. And he's like, oh, cool, man. Hey, I'm in Costa Rica with my boys, and I'm like, this is the energy of our Patreon subscribers.
You're so nice.
I love making new friends.
Oh wow, I'm scared.
If you're just a basic ass Asian dude, straight, gay, doesn't matter to me. But if you like working on your tries and buys, what's up? Shouts. But yeah, so go to patreon.com/AsianNotAsianPod, and we also give you a shout out on the podcast where we then guess your ethnicity. We got a couple today. First one. Zoe, or maybe Zoe, I don't know. Z-O-E. Zoe.
Probably Zoe.
Zoe Brannigan.
Zoe Brannigan?
Right?
Now, this is a hard one.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Brannigan.
Brannigan, is it Irish?
I think so.
Yes. And Zoe could be really anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to guess half Vietnamese, half Irish.
Half Vietnamese.
Because I have a friend named Zoe who's Vietnamese. So I'm just going to go that direction.
I do like the half Irish. I'm into the half Irish.
Yeah, you didn't like Vietnamese though.
You have a friend named Zoe who's Vietnamese?
Who's Vietnamese, yeah.
Fuck. I thought I had every time I think I have a handle on what it's like to be Vietnamese American, a fucking Zoe pops up. Fucking throws my shit out the window. Damn. Okay.
Asians can be anything.
They
can
really
be Zoes.
They can be Zoe. When I was growing up, you were either a Michael
or a Jennifer.
Or a Jennifer.
Like, honestly.
Really?
That was it.
It's a good thing we didn't come here during the whole Ellis Island thing, because it would have just been name, yes, Michael Nguyen. Oh,
Yeah.
God, number 5,000.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, I'm going to go with it, though. I like that.
Okay.
You are half Irish, half Vietnamese. Anything you want to be Asian.
Mm-hmm.
Shouts. And then the other one, Alex Lay.
Lay, L-E.
L-E.
Oh, man. I already used Vietnamese. Because I was going to say Vietnamese.
This person is definitely Vietnamese. I know this is one of my bros that I have like a parasocial relationship with. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. Do you know this guy? No, don't answer yet.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there's no one else here. There's no one else here yet.
Yeah, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. He gave us a good amount of money, which I'm not sure how he does this, because usually jiu-jitsu guys are super poor. So
wait, he works in jiu-jitsu?
He's like from what I can understand, I think he's like a semi-pro.
Whoa, what does that even mean?
In the sense, I think he like has some money from it, like he like owns a school or something.
Oh, I see.
At the very least, he trains a lot and he like competes a lot, which takes up a fuck ton of time and resources and money.
Yeah.
So the fact that he gave us some money for himself that he could be using for physical therapy to fix his broken body means a lot.
Wow. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so
much, And
much,
now
Alex.
I feel like I just doubled down on Vietnamese this episode.
Yeah.
I should have looked at the full list before I went for it.
You know what, though? Maybe, you know what? We're here for it with Vietnamese people. So thank you very much. Again, go check out patreon.com/Asian.AsianPod, and you can get up on this. Let's start the show. Jenny, you want to go first?
Sure.
Yeah. Jenny, what kind of Asian were you this week?
I was an emotional breakdown Asian,
Alrighty.
as I kind of mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. Let me just preface this by saying I had a pretty great weekend. Like, actually one of like a wonderful weekend.
Okay.
Really, really good. There's a lot of stories within just that last weekend, which I'll save for another episode where we can like get into it.
Yeah.
But I had like an awesome weekend. Last weekend,
right.
where I was just like, whoa, life is amazing.
Yes.
I love New York. I have friends. Like, what a time. And almost always that indicates that eventually I will break down.
The highs get high and the lows get low.
Exactly. And so it's also on the heels of my birthday. Like, I just have been socializing a lot, and I'm an introvert. And so I think I just was out too much, having the time of my life, but I didn't really get a chance to like really sit down and be by myself, which I need to recuperate and like have a sense of self. And so I think this just went through the week, and a bunch of little interactions just broke me on Wednesday.
Shit.
I also hate saying this, but it was the supermoon on August 11th.
Oh, I fucking knew I shouldn't have let that supermoon in. Fuck.
But anyways, like August 10th, I was just like, all of a sudden it hit me where like a lot of little things just like bothered me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I wasn't maybe being listened to, or I wasn't being considered in plans or all that stuff. And then I usually cycle around to, and this is just consistently what I tend to do, is that I start to feel either like not worthy of like love or like I am only lovable if I'm being funny and fun and type A, because I am also the planner of the group. So like I plan a lot of stuff, and I just like hit a point where I was like, wow, I'm tired of planning. Like I'm tired of like organizing every part of my life, because my job that I started up again is organizing,
getting people like all in line.
Exactly. And then like, you know, we have this, and then I have like another show that I help produce, and then I also like just like personal life stuff. I'm the planner, and they just like all culminated in this point. I was like, I'm only loved because I'm funny sometimes, and because I'm like goofy doofy, and then like sometimes I like plan things for everybody, and if I'm not doing those things, I'm like not worthy of love.
Do you find sometimes like if you don't plan it, people will just like not include you on the thing?
It's not that I'm not included, it's just nothing will happen.
I hate that.
Yeah. And so I like go through these, I wish I could be chill and just chaotic
just
and just like impulsive, but I am not, as you can probably tell from my energy. And so I don't know, it just like hit a point, and then I was like, I mean, everyone was so lovely and like nice to me when I would talk about it, which is a big growth from like 3 years ago when I would not talk about it. So
Sure.
at least I can like voice it now. I'm talking about it on a podcast
Yeah.
now. Like that's huge. And my recovery time is getting shorter. So like before it would take like a week for me to like feel normal again.
Yep.
And this time is like within like 12 hours, I was fine.
Okay.
Were my eyes puffy? Yeah. Oh, because I wanted to cry, so I watched Everything Everywhere, which I bought, and I watched it for the third time, and I bawled harder than I did the first two times. Each time I cry more.
You watched it so to like invoke crying.
Yeah.
So that you could kind of like
Get it out.
Yeah. That's such an interest. I mean, I feel this is I'm full of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in my bone marrow.
Yeah.
So like, I don't understand that necessarily. Can you like tell me a little bit about like that process?
The process is that my body reacts quicker than my brain. So I started crying and I was like, whoa, what the heck? And I was like, oh, this is what I'm like not in a good place right now.
Yo.
And then I was like, okay, that means that my body wants to cry. And so I was like, well, I'm going to help it along, because before I would just wait all day and like feel bad, but then not know what to do. And now I'm like, just let it out. And so I sat down, watched Everything Everywhere, sobbed my eyes out, and then I like quietly sat and journaled for a little bit, and then went to bed.
And you felt better after the crying.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's better than holding it in. I think holding it in, it'll just explode later.
No, I feel, because I feel like, I don't know if this is a guy thing or not, but just like, I always thought like, oh, crying would make you feel worse, because it's like, you're like, crying is like an explosion of the bad feeling, and it's like if a volcano explodes, well, I guess there's like pressure, but now it's like destroyed a bunch of stuff.
I see.
So like for me, I never thought about that, but then I also don't cry that much, but maybe I should give it a shot.
I love it. I didn't used to cry either before.
Really?
But now I just embrace it. When it starts happening, I'm like, instead of stopping it, because stopping it is not doing anything other than me holding it in and repressing those feelings, might as well just like let the feelings out, think through what caused those feelings, and understand, and then move on. That's faster and healthier to me.
Yeah.
Than like what I used to do, which is like, stop. You're like a comedian.
Yes.
You don't get to be sad.
Yes.
At least not publicly.
I think that's important to like kind of have the feelings like kind of play out, I guess, right? It's like, let's just see what happens. And
exactly.
Let yourself be scared, or let yourself be afraid, or whatever.
Totally.
I mean, to bring it back to comedy, sometimes when people always ask, oh, don't you get nervous when you go and do a show? And generally I don't get nervous, but if I do, I let myself be nervous. I'm just like, just let it happen. And I will go and I'll kind of like dry heave, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know, like, it's almost like my body just needs to do it. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, just
exactly. And also that energy can pay off later, in your performance or whatever. That nervous energy. And for me, I was like, I'm going to cry and think about it, and that could be material.
Everything's content,
Let me just say this. So I tweeted about the fact that I had a breakdown in a joke way, where I was like, obviously it has nothing to do with my decisions. It has to do with the supermoon on August 11th.
Of course.
That's what caused it. And then friend of the pod, just our friend, Brian Park, I saw him yesterday at your show, and he walks in and goes, Jenny, I saw your tweet about that emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Is that real?
Yeah.
And I said, Brian, you saw the tweet and you didn't like it? That's fucked up. That is so fucked up.
Fuck.
And he was like, sorry, I was busy. I couldn't like it. And I was like, so you had time to read it and you didn't have time to hit the like button?
You can hit the like button.
Yeah. And then I basically just dragged him for not liking my content about my emotional breakdown. And then he immediately liked it.
So I think it's such a us thing that I have to find out about your emotional breakdown through this content. And then Brian found out about it through another kind of content.
Yes.
And then later on, people will be like, "Oh my god, I saw your one-man show about this content.
Yeah, I know.
About this emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it?"
I'm gonna do it an hour long. I've never done stand-up before. I'm gonna do an hour-long thing on it.
Easily.
Set.
For sure.
An hour.
I want to talk a little bit more about your emotional breakdown too, because I think I'm getting to know you better.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to sense that these happen a lot.
Well, no, this was a big one.
Okay.
It used to happen to me a lot more.
Yeah.
And I started going to therapy, and now it happens like once, maybe every 6 months. Like it's
Okay.
really not that much, but it's almost always when I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because I can't compartmentalize what's causing what. So I just feel, when I start feeling bad about myself, I just feel bad about myself across everything.
Yeah.
Like it's like the core of my existence is bad.
Damn.
Which once again, I think is partially being just like part of it's being Japanese and being like raised that way, which is like
Your underlying value is like
you're responsible. You know,
Oh.
it's like your fault if something happens.
shit.
So that was my week, but I feel great now.
Okay, good.
And I'm happy to be here, and I
Yeah.
can talk about it. So that's like a big growth for me.
It's huge, and it's huge for the podcast.
Yeah, it's huge for the podcast. And ultimately, we're trying to get more people to listen
Yes.
by me being vulnerable.
Yes. So thank you very much for doing that.
It's paying off.
You're doing it. I love
Sponsors, come on.
it. We do have a lot of sponsors related to mental health, so I think that is important. That's awesome. Well,
All right.
welcome back.
Yeah, well, Mike, what kind of Asian were you this week?
I was a half-hour Asian.
Yes, you was.
I did my half hour yesterday. Me and Fumi at Hack City. And I was stressing about it. I'm going to talk about this at length later on, but I had COVID for the last 2 weeks. And physically was fine. It was just like, a couple days I'm like, The biggest thing I think with COVID for me was just like socially, and like it like fucks up like your fucking life. You can't go
Yeah.
anywhere. I'm like, I had to like quarantine away from my family, and then like my wife had to quarantine away from us to like try to stay healthy. So that sucks. You're just like,
Yeah.
You're like separated from each other. I couldn't do a bunch of
Oh my God.
There is a leak.
There is a leak.
We are making this podcast booth cry.
Just to explain what's going on,
There is a
water
straight
just
up-
fully is dripping.
I mean, this is almost kind of like a sweet waterfall effect that's happening.
I think we're going to have to figure this out.
Anyway, so then I was doing my half hour, and and it was cool. And the thing, I couldn't go and I couldn't do stand up. So I had to cancel a bunch of shows. One of the shows I was gonna do, I was a headliner, so I was gonna be able to do like 20 minutes, and that would have been nice to like just kind of draw it out. And I basically kind of panicked, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this half hour. So I text Fumi, and I'm like, hey man, maybe we need a feature. We need another person, So like, because if Fumi will do his half hour, I'll do like 20, 15 minutes or whatever. Fumi goes, no, we're not booking anyone else. Force yourself. This is all over text. And he's like, if you don't do it, I'll just do an hour. I don't care. Blah blah blah. And I was like, this is as close to a pep talk as I will ever get from Fumi Abe.
Yeah.
And it was exactly what I wanted.
Oh, good.
It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted somebody to be like, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Totally.
And so it was. And so I did a bunch of stuff that was absolutely new. I had written a bunch of stuff about getting COVID. That was like a ton of stuff. I did this weird thing in the middle where like I changed my clothes.
Yeah.
Which was something I've always wanted to try. I just wanted to like do something a little bit different, I had like a sound cue and
I
everything.
thought it was fun.
I thought it was fun. Everybody was on
outfit
board.
change.
The outfit, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was cool, and you sent me this nice video. It's so funny when you do a half hour, you have no idea how much time is passing.
Yeah.
I remember I wrote all my jokes down on like these big pieces of paper. Just like, what joke is next or whatever, and it was all
Right.
these things. And like the first like page and a half, I would say, is like COVID stuff. And I go and I do it all. I do all the COVID stuff, and I'm like on page 2 out of 5, and I'm like, has it been straight up like 2 minutes? You know what I'm saying? I had
Right.
no idea how
Yeah.
much time has passed.
It looked like you were doing like a set list, like a rock concert set list from the back when I was
Yeah,
watching you.
yeah.
Because you would like go through and see these big pieces of paper, and you'd like, I could see you noting, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is like a rock concert. But it's a Vietnamese guy doing
The
a stand up
Vietnamese guy.
for 30 minutes.
What we do in San Francisco? Asian parents are crazy. Yeah, so but fortunately, like I had some timers going, and I was like, okay, I'm doing okay. It's gonna be fine. And it was a lot of fun. And at the end, to kind of like talk about crying, the closest I ever get to crying is when I talk about my son being born. Like something weird happens where I'm talking, and then all of a sudden, my body's just like, this is gonna happen. We're gonna cry now.
Yes.
And it's like not a rational thing. It's just like something in my
Totally.
my eyeballs just start watering up.
Yeah.
And it's starting to happen right now. So like it was cool. The way I ended the show, I tried to like, I told the story about how I went through IVF and all these things, and it was tough. I wanted to do something that really ended like on, I don't know, like a very personal, touch.
Yeah.
So I was nervous about that. It was just like a big finish for me, and again, one I hadn't really ever done before. So we did it, and it was cool, and it was nice to see. What was cool was that at the show, since it was just me and Fumi, and we had a host, Natasha Bain Black, everyone was there to see us, which is like such a weird.
I said that. I was like, all the people who are here to see this are here to see you two.
Yeah.
Like, they are, if not fans, they know someone who's a fan. Like, they all are here for a reason.
And to kind of go back to like the value thing, I'm just like, I never think about like, oh, I have value in this way, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And to like be stared in the face by literally people who are like, they came to see you. I almost don't believe it. Yeah. Even now.
I know.
I'm like, my mom paid you all.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's very nice, Mom.
Or you're here to like make fun of me later.
Yeah. Whatever.
You all are bullies.
Yeah. Jerks.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and it was really so like creatively I grew. Financially, it was a success, and it was nice to get out. And again, because I had COVID, it was just like a way to kind of put that away. You know what I'm saying? So it's been cool. And I want to now talk about to our guest about just like a bunch of different things. This person is also putting together something really special. Also, I apologize if the music is loud as fuck here. It's loud as fuck.
So chaotic in here.
It is getting nuts.
Like, we had to cut once because there's a leak in the ceiling.
There's a leak.
It started leaking directly on Mike's laptop.
If you're on YouTube, you might occasionally see a drop come down.
Yes.
And that is because we're still filming inside of this booth while there is a leak happening.
I think there's a live DJ here, which is why the music got louder.
And this music is insanity.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it with our guest. This guest is a comedian, producer, writer, founder of the Asian Comedy Festival. Amazing festival. He's got a one-man show coming up called Case 841410, My Korean Adoptee Story. Give it up right now, friend of the pod, Ed Pokropski!
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for being
Make
here.
Make sure to speak up loud as fuck.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, right, because we've got the DJ going.
Yeah, we're all going to be screaming.
No, it's great to be here with Jenny now. I was on once a while back when Fumi was here, and I was really excited to be able to come and do this now with Jenny.
Aww.
So this is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot less about buttholes.
It's always good to see you too, Mike.
I feel I don't even. You can't even hurt my feelings.
No,
because we are buddies.
We are buddies. We are pals.
Are one of the actually no. There's a lot of guys I talk to about this, but you're one of my combat sport friends.
Yes.
Jenny, you didn't think we were going to talk about combat sports.
I know, but if you talk about it too much, I will start screaming.
No, you guys should have a buzzer for every time just to shut it down. Yeah.
No, we're always like DMing. I'm like, hey man, you want to work on a screamer? You want to work on? Should we work on our close hand fighting skills today?
And it's so funny because I am so terrible at the jiu-jitsu and the grappling side of things, and it's something that I always like stay away from, but respect totally. But there's so many different worlds to combat sports and different disciplines and stuff like that. But it's always fun to talk to someone else about it, or someone else who's in like a separate discipline as you. Yeah, it's so cool.
It's always crazy to me that there's a comedian. It's always crazy to me that like you're like, oh, I gotta stay away from jiu-jitsu, but you do boxing, so you get punched in the face constantly.
It's so funny. I'd rather get punched in the face than my leg or my arm yanked out of it. You know what I mean? Something about that, I guess I'm just used to. I don't know.
Yeah, it's well, thanks for coming. Very quickly, you have been on the show before, but what we like to do for our guests is we give you a minute to win it. So you have one whole minute to talk about whatever you want. Introduce yourself however you want. Talk about yourself. You got a minute. Only rule is you got to use the whole minute.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Begin.
Okay, so you already said my name's Ed Pokropski, and I'm a writer-producer. I am working on a one-man show coming up soon. I wanted to kind of address the whole crying thing, which I really appreciated because I am kind of a sucker when it comes to crying at movies.
Oh.
Yeah, so especially, and you were talking about the idea of being a dad and like you think about your son. If I see a movie where there's a really good dad in it, my wife knows this, I get choked up.
Really?
Aww.
And if the movie, I mean, this kind of leads into my show. If the movie has something about any sort of like parent, adoption, anything like that, I have a confession. I cried at Kung Fu Panda 2.
Oh,
Whoa.
Because they get into the whole thing of like when he gets like dropped in that basket by his mom, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's like
I get it.
like, I'm crying at Kung Fu Panda 2.
Yes.
So so I'm a sucker for movies like that, and I get choked up. Also, I have done the thing where like I need to have a good cry, and what I use for that sometimes is this is silly. I use golden buzzer moments, like compilations.
Oh, yeah.
What is a golden buzzer moment?
So on,
By the way, you've finished your minute. But go ahead, but continue.
On America's Got Talent, when they hit the golden buzzer, and that just like skyrockets them to the final round.
Yeah.
So like when that happens, what usually is like I'll watch one and like they slow things down and they hit the button, and then I'm always like, they're following their dreams.
And they make it so the music is like so emotional, and you see like everything in slow motion, and it's like beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know why and how I found out that just is like an immediate like can drop the waterworks easily.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think the thing about it is, and similar you probably to like working out or doing jujitsu, is like the idea is like you put yourself in that situation purposefully. You know,
Right, 'cause
almost
you
like
know-
sparring.
Yeah.
It's a simulated thing where you know you're feeling an emotion, but it's like as part of like a whole thing that you're feeling in the moment. So
Right.
that's
Whoa.
why I totally understand where Jenny's coming from of like saying I need to create this situation so I can feel all this stuff at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Totally get
Okay,
it.
thank you, Ed, for kind of
Yeah.
putting that in combat sports terminology so Mike can understand what I'm going
I'm
through.
like, I don't understand emotion. Oh, wait, well, hold on. So what you saying? It's like getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
Now I
the
get
second
it.
you said sparring, I was in.
Dude, as soon as you said straight armbar, I was like, I get it.
Now I get it.
Now
yeah.
I get it. That's so interesting how everyone has like a different movie, I think. And can I tell you the thing that used to make me like get close to crying
Yeah.
was the Rocky movies because of
Combat sports.
Yeah.
well, combat sports. But and then I think I can't remember which one. His wife is gone,
Yeah.
right? And there was just something about just like you lived your whole life for somebody, and that person, you had a beautiful moment with them, and now they're gone, and that was so fucking sad. And I'm just like, a lot of times it was always like, yeah, like you're, like a wife who has passed away or a husband who's passed away. For me, that was like, I don't know why. I think I'm a big romantic. And the other thing that surprisingly made me sad was Avengers Civil War.
Oh my god.
There was a moment where Captain America and Iron Man and everybody is like arguing about something, and I was like, I think I was in a really emotional place also, just personally, and I was just like, why can't they just get along? Iron Man had said, and you guys are on the same team.
Sometimes I am shook by how straight male you are. That is the most.
I get so I was like, you guys, it's just like you need to come together. Avengers is all about you can defeat Thanos, but you guys are fighting amongst yourselves, and that's that last. I really was like,
I can't.
I got straight choked up. I was like, you both are valid, okay?
Oh my
Captain
God.
America, okay?
I can't relate to anything less than this.
What about straight arm bars? No. Ed, thank you for coming on to the show. You got a one man show coming up, and you've spoken to us about your adoption journey and kind of the history of it. And I wanted to ask, like, just can you tell us a little bit about the show? Like, why Why did you want to put it together into this format and your sort of process with it?
Yeah, I think it's just like about the idea that, when I've done stand-up before, it obviously it always finds its way in because it's one of the first things that when I meet people, because of my name, it comes up, inevitably. And it's a conversation I have with people a lot. And from there, it made its way into, stand-up when I was doing that more often. And then also, when I've gone on podcasts and talked to people before, it usually is a topic that will come up as well. And then I did do a couple different talks. Like I did a Asian American TED Talk style thing for it, which was only 10 minutes long that time that I did it. And then once I did that, it's sort of a couple people had seen it and they asked if I could do it for a corporate thing or a API or DEI type of group setting. So I sort of found myself doing this type of talk on a couple different occasions in a lot of different ways. And then eventually, I had all this material, I had all these pieces that were just kind of floating around in the ether. And then I saw that more and more people were doing one-person solo shows, and I went to see one from a friend of ours and another writer comic, Michael Cruz Kane.
Oh yeah.
And he had been doing a solo show, Sorry for Your Loss,
right?
About a very hard time in his life, and I went to see it, and it was just seeing the way that it sort of changed my view of what stand-up or even just comedy could be in that format. And seeing him work with through stuff, but then also create this space of visual things, and not that we've seen stuff with visual cues and things like that before, but the way this sort of took shape was something that I was oh my God, I've been doing this. This is sort of there.
Right.
And now if I could just take all these pieces floating in the ether, I think I could do it in this way and find a more cohesive way to tell this whole story, and also inserting the story of me going back to Korea and searching for things there, tying all of that in, and I felt like this was a great opportunity to give it a shot and challenge myself to do it.
Absolutely,
That's awesome.
This is a tricky thing to talk about, personally, as a man, as a dude, and I'm talking about my hair. Yes, I have hair, okay? I'm sensitive about it. I wanted to find a treatment for hair growth that took into account my whole body. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth nutraceuticals go beyond genetics to multi-target the root causes of thinning, including stress, hormones, nutrition, metabolism, aging, and lifestyle through whole body health. Physician formulated using natural medical grade ingredients, Nutrafol's drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Hey. In a clinical study, men showed progressive improvements in hair growth and thickness after 3 and 6 months. Nutrafol is also trusted and recommended by more than 3,000 top doctors. You can grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com/men and entering the promo code ASIAN to save $15 off your first month subscription. This is their best offer anywhere, and it's only available to U.S. customers for a limited time. Plus, free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, promo code ASIAN. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. I want to know what you all do to take care of your mind. Do you read? Do you just chill? Do you go on long walks? I got one friend, he just dances in public. That's his thing. And that's his form of self-care. Hey, whatever works for you. I think these last few years, we've become more and more aware of how important self-care, how important therapy can be. I've done a bunch of different forms of therapy. I've done in-person therapy. I've done CBT. I've done text-based therapy. I even had a few sessions with some coaches. And I'll tell you, they definitely helped me work through a lot of different things. But maybe you don't have time or the ability to go meet someone in person. What's cool about BetterHelp is it's online therapy. So you can do video, phone, or chat-only therapy. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in 48 hours. our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Asian. That's betterhelp.com/Asian. What's up, y'all? I want to talk to you guys about Athletic Greens. I know I talk about it all the time, but guys, I literally use this product every day. In fact, I just re-upped. I got another big bag of it, and every morning I wake up, I kiss my baby son, I work out with kettlebells, and I give myself a pep talk into the mirror, and then it's Athletic Greens time. What is Athletic Greens? It's basically 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens. It tastes great, very easy to mix into your drink, super easy to incorporate into your day. I drink mine alongside my morning coffee, and it's an awesome way to start the day. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, and it costs you less than $3 a day, so it's cheaper than getting all the different supplements separately. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Asian not Asian. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Asian not Asian to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Have you, while you're putting this together, has there been any like realizations, just like either creatively or whatever, as you put it together?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was I would start with like a question I would commonly get asked, and then I would go down that lane. But then of course that would open up the area of like another question within that range, and then it would just sort of like these things would like go on top of each other in a way that I hadn't realized before. So that was one thing that I definitely realized later, like, oh, this is why I think this, and this is why this person is asking me this. And then the other thing was I don't think I had truly unpacked all the feelings and all the things that I had experienced on my trip back to Korea.
Sure.
Which was now like 7 years ago.
Okay.
And obviously, like, there were so many stages. It was like what I felt when it was actually happening.
Damn.
What it felt like when I got back, like, immediately after and was like back in my usual life.
Right.
And then now it's like going back to unpack and look at all the pictures and look at all the videos that I took, which I forgot that I took.
Fuck.
And looking at it with a new perspective and a new eye and being like, oh, I forgot about this for a while. And to also think like, I just never thought it would become something that I talked this openly about with everyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would come up in conversation with people, and sometimes I would dive into it a little bit more. But it never on the scale of like, oh my God, this is what I felt when this was happening. This is what I felt when I found out this piece of information. So that was eye-opening. And even when I was just going through all the pictures, I was like, oh my God, this happened. I met this this type of thing was, it was very interesting to do that.
I feel it's like so, it's something you don't realize sometimes. I mean, when I was doing my half hour, it's nice to have the space, like stage time wise and whatever, to get into the thing. I think that so many times with stand-up and with improv, you have like 30 seconds to get to either a punchline or to a point, right? But I think when you give yourself the space to just like sit in it and just like untangle all the craziness and to like ask yourself the question again and again and again, that's really where you can like that's why I was asking you about, like, as you're doing this, have you like come across anything, wow, I never knew I thought about that way,
Yeah. I guess my question, like following up on that, is in terms of like not thinking that you would have or get this into it or talk about it this openly, was it that you didn't want to talk about it, or you just didn't have the space to talk about it?
Probably a little bit of both. Probably in the beginning of like not wanting to talk about it, and that was only because I just felt like at the time I was sort of kidding myself and like, okay, well now I know, and now I'm just gonna live my life.
Time to keep going.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that was a bit naive at the time, thinking like, oh, this will never pop in my brain again down the road.
Oh.
So that was probably part of it. And you're right, definitely the time thing is a huge part. And like you were saying, Mike, like the first time I even did anything related to like a cohesive story, again, was only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you're doing the thing, like, I have a couple jokes at the top of the set when I was doing stand-up where I would joke about it, but they were so quick, and then I was like on to something else. And I realized, like, when I did a couple run-throughs, and I did one for my friend who, he's an actor, and like his notes for me were like, you got to slow down. And I was like, oh, right. My brain was like, boom, 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 get to the joke. Boom, 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 get to the thing. And he's like, just like you said, you got to slow down and be in those moments to truly let people absorb, what you just said.
Right.
And then what was the arc, what was the point, and then be able to move on. And yes, if you can throw the joke in there that you want.
Right.
All those things are happening at the same time. If you don't pump the brakes a little bit, no one's ever going to absorb any of it.
Right. And you also kind of, I feel sometimes have to allow yourself to not have to get to a punchline. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Sometimes it's just going to be like, it's not going to go there. It's just going to be something else. You know what I'm saying?
And that's been a hard balance to strike because there are points where I'm like, let me break the tension and make a joke here.
Instinctually, I feel like everyone does. You want to do that.
Of course. And I think sometimes that's right and sometimes that's right on. And then other times it does, clearly, like my wife has been watching and she's like, she can clearly tell when I'm uncomfortable with like something and now I'm telling a joke. And that comes through. So I think learning that as well, like what I'm truly comfortable with and what I may not realize I'm not so comfortable with has been a great experience to kind of figure that out as well.
Yeah. Is the show, I don't know how to say it, like, is the show supposed to be funny?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's still supposed to be funny, but I think it's like, it's still like earnest in the stories that I'm telling and in the interactions that I'm describing with people as, growing up as a kid and then as a teenager, as an adult, and the things that I would hear as an adoptee. I mean, that is in earnest. It's finding the comedy and the jokes of within those moments, or just like how I've been able to compartmentalize some things, or just having to laugh at certain moments. Yeah. But overall, it's still in earnest of the stories that I'm telling. Yeah. Right. But yes, it's still supposed. Like, I still want people to have a good time overall. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so you're. This episode will be out after the first time you're doing it, because you're doing it. What's your first date?
August 18th.
August 18th.
Yes.
Are you, I guess you'll see how it goes, but are you planning to like keep it going, like expand it off to other things or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what it was I do this to myself sometimes where I'm like, I'm just gonna book the thing, or I'm gonna like,
you just gotta.
I'm gonna set the date, and it's gonna force me to do all the thing to do it. And I think that was part of this where I did that, and then I was like, let me just focus on this first one now. Yep. And, I can see how it goes and what I like about it and what I don't like, and then move from there. And I definitely think I want to do, like, just from the process of putting it together has been really enjoyable. And I think it's something that I would like to try to do again. And, some people have like, oh, I can't make that one. Or if you do it again, let me know. Yeah. So I do want to do it in a way that like I know by doing it in those spaces, it'll get better and get better.
Yeah, of course.
My intention is, yes, to do it more and again. But when I first booked to do it, it was really just to force myself to get it out.
Yeah. It's literally setting a deadline. Yeah. Or else you won't do it.
Yeah. You just gotta get the first draft out.
Absolutely.
Sometime.
Exactly. And this really did force me to silly me is like, I looked at stuff I had. I was like, oh, this is basically like there. Yeah. And then I started going through my slides and going through the stuff, and I'm like, oh boy, this needs a little bit more. This needs some massaging. This needs, because I had done it a couple times in person, but I'd done it a bunch of times in Zoom or digital rooms. So that obviously will
like
feel completely different.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's cool that I'm always sort of fascinated about, I think for a lot of people, people have a few major stories or like core memories, whatever you want to call them, that we kind of like orbit around. Do you know what I'm saying? I think one of them for me is like, it sounds frivolous, but like my interest in fashion is like a core story that I'm always like talking to myself about, and people always ask me about it. they goes, why are you, what's going on there? And I love talking about it. I've never gotten bored. I could do it over and over and over again. And so I think it's interesting, for you were saying, you've been telling the story, and you've told us a little bit about it on previous things, and you obviously have content about it, but it's like, it's always fascinating to me. There are certain stories in your life, I'm not tired of talking about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like defining stories that shape who you are.
Right, because in telling that story over and over and over again, you like have a better understanding yourself. I think. I don't know.
No, for sure. And this is the first time that I like really tried to break down the common questions that I usually get and where that goes, and then but also like why I may get that question and why it's so universal from people. And I think that was the fascinating thing when I really stopped to think about it. I think it just said a lot about like how we think about so many things that we might not have as much experience in. That's just how it happens, and how media shapes our understanding of certain things, of course.
Are you I know you haven't done the first official one, but you have done these things before. Are you anxious about the reaction from different communities, I guess?
Yeah, well, like everything with the Asian American community, like it's hard, there's so many pockets within it. Well, obviously, we're not a monolith, obviously. So I think there's so many pockets within it, but I think we've been getting better about being like, there's a ton of stories, so let's try to tell as many as we can. Type vibe. The adoptee community is a tricky one too, because I've been part of different like organizations that are supporting it, and you go to different groups, and everyone has very different experiences with adoption, and which is partly what this is about, and different views on it, and different ways that they sort of interact with that. So I guess in one way, like I want, if people who may come who may be adoptees themselves, like I never want them to think like this is the end-all be-all of adoptee stories. I think that's something that gets tricky, because they're like with Asian American stories, there are only so many that get allowed to be out there.
Right.
So when one comes out, and it's not this is in one theater in New York. It's not like it's on Netflix or anything. But the problem is obviously when one thing gets out, it's easy to judge that one being like, oh, this guy thinks
is the art.
And that's the thing that I want to avoid, because I don't want anyone when I go up there to think like I'm saying this is an experience that all adoptees would have.
Right.
If anything, I've worked to just make it sort of like, this is what I've experienced. Maybe someone else has, and maybe they haven't, or whatever. And try to look at it at those different angles. So I would say that's my only, thing. I guess the other part of it too is, and this goes with a lot of stuff when you talk about tough topics, is I don't want people to go in there feeling like pity or sadness in a way. That's not what this is about. This is about the idea of a full 360 idea of something. And yes, you can feel sad or things like that, but I think sometimes, and I'm sure it's happened to us before, where you try to create something like vulnerable, but then all people can get in their head like, oh, I feel so bad for them. And you're like, thank you for your empathy. Right. However, that's not necessarily the point. This was to be empowering. And the fact that if you could see it in a different light, that's the ultimate thing, is to see it for all that it is.
Let me just say, yesterday when you were doing your set, there was I think maybe it was when you were talking about at the end, when you were talking about having your son. There was a moment where everyone, I don't know if you remember, you said something and then everyone went, oh. And then I don't know if you heard us, we all started laughing in the back.
I remember.
Because of that, which is like, I think there is this tendency for like pity to like be the overwhelming feeling, and I wanted to come out and be like, it's okay, he's here, he's talking about it.
That's the whole point.
And this is like part of it, and it's okay. And it is so fascinating that sometimes like audiences do maybe react too much with the empathy piece, and it's like, no, we're here sharing this story, and we're going to talk about what we learned from it and how I'm like, it's a part of my life.
It's it is important, I think, and I know like kind of the part you were talking about where it's like, I'm putting myself out there so that other people will feel that it's okay to put yourself out there. That's a lot of it. I want to First of all, again, I apologize for the music. We're having this great conversation, and fucking Lizzo is playing, and it's just like, and I'm just like, fucking goddamn.
Empowering. That's empowering.
It is empowering.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk. Yeah, I wanted to bring up the whole audience reaction piece because, like the earlier this week, I had I'm putting out my stand-up clips, and one of them went kind of viral, and then it got picked up on this other. It's about. If Vietnam beat America in the Vietnam War, how come America isn't part of Vietnam? And it's a fucking joke, everybody. First of all, okay, I don't literally mean let's call the UN and redo some borders.
Yeah.
But I put that out there. I think I love that joke. It's very insane. It's an insane idea, although it's one that it's like if you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, I don't know. So I put that out there, and it got picked up on this other Vietnamese comedy aggregator Instagram thing, and I kind of made the mistake of reading through the comments.
Yeah.
And here's it, and it was a very interesting thing because I have gone through comments of my stand-up, and it's like, oh, it's not funny, whatever. But this time, it's like all commentators who are named Nguyen, and so it's like I'm getting a different kind of take from my own community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most liked comments was this is a classic Vietnamese. They didn't like how I said the word the city Hanoi, right? I didn't say it in like the Vietnamese way.
Sure.
And that's like a big thing, and it's very annoying. And then there's somebody else was saying, like I don't even understand stand up or whatever, right? And I think for me it was like this is with my community, the people that I'm trying to make proud of me, and some of them are kind of giving me shit about it.
Yeah.
And that is a different kind of ouch.
Yes.
Than anyone else, than like just like a random dude on the internet, right? At the same time, it was I did get a lot of followers out of it, so that means that like there's a lot of people who are kind of like, I didn't like how he said Hanoi, but then at the same time, so a lot of people are like, you know what, that was kind of interesting, and I'll follow this guy.
Yeah.
So that was cool, and so. That's why I wanted to, bring up this whole thing with, when you talk to the story about Korean adoptees, there's this whole thing back and forth with like, these are the people I'm trying to represent, but sometimes those people take the story wrong, or they don't like it, or I think it's hard to not see something and then automatically assume that that's going to be everyone's story. You know?
And I totally get that, and I think that I sort of addressed that a little bit with the way Korean, actually all adoptee stories are sort of covered from time to time.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I'm trying to kind of like call that out or give semblance to the fact that, yes, we might not always like certain stories or certain things that we hear, but there's a lot of facets to it. And again, yes, it's hard to tell someone who's not themselves a creative who would ever assume to like go and tell their own story. It's easy to tell someone, well, then you tell your story. And they're like, that's not me, man. You know? So it's easier for them to just look at yours and go like, well, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do it that way.
I
wouldn't do it that way.
That's a lot easier for everyone. Everyone's a director. Everyone's an executive producer. Then in those cases. But yeah, so I get that knee-jerk reaction, and I think it's just, I'm trying to just, and you can't please everyone, and I'm not going to sit there and try to plug up every single hole, but I have taken time, and if later, if it wants to start a dialogue, and like, who knows, however this gets cut up, or if I post it, or whatever, if I do, great. And then if there's people who are like, oh, I don't agree with that, then sure, fine.
Right.
But if like someone in the audience, or as if I do it and someone like, wants to talk about their experience, then that's great. That's fine. I'm happy to hear that. And maybe I thought about that too, is like my memories of things and like the pieces and documents I have, I was looking through some of that stuff and I'm like, did I remember this wrong? Am I representing the process that I went through to get this right? I was trying to even think about the geography of certain places I went and trying to think of like, am I even representing this right in the first place? Mm-hmm. But I tried to eventually stop myself from getting too in the weeds of that, because I was like, it's not really about the overall accuracy completely. It is about the arc and what the overall point and what the conclusion was that you come to. And memories are fuzzy for everyone.
Right.
And even when you have documentation, pictures, whatever, you're never going to get it exactly right, even from your own life.
Right.
So I'm hoping that I get the tone right from the top, that people will understand that and accept that, and then be open to flaws and open to,
Right.
you know, my bad Korean pronunciation.
Well,
you know what I mean? You know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Jane, I don't know if you've ever kind of like encountered that with, I guess, the people you would consider your community. You know?
I mean, I think this is the thing about when we talked about Constance Wu previously. It's like the hardest feedback or criticism to receive is from people that you want, who are part of your community.
Right.
And like, I think in general, I try to approach everything as like, this is my experience. I am not claiming this to be like every Asian woman's experience. I'm just saying this is my experience and that I'm having living here in New York City. And so generally I try to make it so specific that like and if there is conversation that's like, okay, well, congratulations, your experience is different than mine. And I think that's like, I think we're getting better at it as a community to understand that no one person can have a universal experience for everyone else. But I think I'm so concerned about feedback on stuff that's why I just double down on like, this is my experience, because I don't know if I can handle being criticized by other Asian American women because that would hurt me truly the most. You
really want to get them on your side, and you know, I wanted to ask, I don't think we've talked about this the last time you were here, but like, if you get a sense of like, what is the Korean in Korea perspective on it? Because I'll tell you, with like the Vietnamese American versus Vietnamese in Vietnam thing, I think it's obviously very complicated, but it's like, sometimes I think it's like Vietnamese people in Vietnam are like wondering what's going on with Vietnamese American people. They're so like not Vietnamese. And I always want to, like, you know, for example, with like my non-Vietnamese skills, I always want to grab people and be like, I grew up in Texas in the 80s. Do you understand that? There was no other Vietnamese people around. You know what I'm saying? Like, the other Vietnamese kid in my first grade class was actually Guatemalan. Okay, like I didn't even know that he was, you know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. It wasn't like I saw Vietnamese and I threw it away. I just didn't have the chance to have it. And so if I could go back in time, I would be fucking speaking Vietnamese like a motherfucker. But I can't. So that's what I'm always trying to get across, or I want to grab people and tell people that. But I didn't know if there was anything like that where, you know, if Korean people are like, oh man, these Korean adoptees are like, you know, whatever. Yeah,
I mean, a little bit, because obviously, I mean, there's the one layer where you just mentioned like Vietnamese American Vietnamese. Right. I mean, you could just say Koreans versus Korean Americans who still have Korean parents.
Of course.
So there's that layer, and I do think they're a little bit harder on. Like, Koreans are harder on those Korean Americans. Because I think in their view, again, this is not a universal statement. I'm not saying them all. I'm just saying when it does happen, I think the assumption is, well, like, you had the things that you had the faculties to still keep up with certain things.
I see.
Whereas, you know, Korean adoptees, I think there is some sort of like a little bit of leeway given, being like, well, you had white parents, and like, you know, so what were you gonna do? But obviously, I think there was a little bit, you know, always wrapped up in these situations. There's a little bit of shame and just like the idea of that type of, you know, giving up children and having other people raise your children. If you're thinking about the national pride of certain things, that's wrapped up in there that no one talks about it. No, why would you want to talk about that? But when I went back to the orphanage, you know, one thing that the person talked to me about there was how there is more of a push to try to promote adopting Korean kids within those spaces. And even when I was there was like a huge poster on the wall that, you know, kind of looked like an ad for soju, but it was like two beautiful a straight beautiful Korean couple holding a Korean baby, and they were, you know,
soju.
And basically being like, you know, I couldn't read it, but essentially the point was, hey, Koreans, adopt Korean kids, you know,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
let's keep this in the family, so to speak.
Dang.
So I think there's definitely stuff wrapped up in there, and I think that, you know, when I went back, I was lucky enough, like the people that I was renting the Airbnb from, they were like really helpful and kind of like showing me and my friend around a little bit and giving us a little bit of like background of what was going on at the time, and that kind of helped me understand a little bit. Like there still is. It's so funny that there is sort of like a fascination with American culture, obviously,
Sure.
when it comes to pop culture in Korea.
Yeah.
But clearly that's more centered around, you know, things like white culture or like hip hop, black culture. It's not so much ever centered around Korean, American, Korean
Yeah.
adoptee
Korean
culture.
adopter culture.
Because, you know, in their minds, well, we're just doing the same thing. We're taking what's in America as well.
Yeah.
So why don't they just get it from what they consider the source?
The source, right.
Which I understand too. So I think there is a little bit of like, okay, you guys are cool, but it's a little bit dismissive, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, it's obviously one of those things where there's subtle differences of way people cut their hair and dress and just the way they commute from work. You know, there's just so many intangibles for anyone visiting an area they're not familiar with. And even if you look the part, if you look a certain way and everyone would assume that you're supposed to fit in, nothing could be further from the truth. If anything, you feel even more foreign than you know, if my friend with me was, you know, a white guy with red hair, and I still felt like I was the one getting like more
the weirder
stares.
one.
Yeah. They were like, oh, cool.
Look at this cool redhead
Yeah,
guy.
who did he bring along here? Why does that guy have facial hair?
What happened, to this, what happened to this almost Korean guy?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
but you know, it was stuff like that. But again, I kind of was sort of preparing myself for that type of feeling, and it was to be expected, but it was I think there's still a lot of like misinformation or just people assuming certain things, so obviously that creates a weird dynamic between the two.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, well, I can't wait to check out the show.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really cool. We're here with Ed Pokropski, producer, comedian, writer, all sorts of good stuff. We're gonna do a voicemail. And we got a really interesting one I'm really excited to talk about. If you want to get up on these voicemails, just leave us one at 646-809-7231. It can be about anything, okay? We are your Asian friends,
Yes.
okay? You can tell us what kind of Asian you were. You can ask us a question. You can ask us to turn down the music. We will try. But yeah, here, let's get up onto this voicemail.
Hey, Mike and Jenny. First of all, thank you so much for having this podcast. I've been a fan for years, and I really enjoy listening to your episodes each week. I was a Korean ghost Asian, and let me tell you some background story. So I'm a Korean adoptee who grew up in the Midwest, and so I reached my 40th birthday, and I've been about 5 years since my adopted mother passed away, and I thought, why not look for your birth mom? What do you have to lose at this point? So I got a lovely phone call from a caseworker at my adoption agency saying that some miraculous miracle of miracles, after 40 years, they were able to locate my birth mother and that she was doing well and still in Korea. She's remarried and does have children, so that's kind of cool. I have half siblings and she's out there. But then she went down the whole, so her husband got your letter and the husband didn't know that she had given a child up for adoption. So basically, she doesn't want to have contact. Something could change. And, this is one of the many scenarios I played out on my head. And I was kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Maybe someday something will change. And she said, well, here's the other thing. So her mother, your maternal grandmother, told her after she gave birth that the baby had died. So, pause for dramatic effect. Seriously, she didn't know I'd been alive for the last 40 years. So I feel almost bad that I blew up her life, that she thought, this baby passed away, not knowing that she's a full grown-ass woman in her 40s living in New York City, thriving, surviving, all those sort of things. And so rightly so, has decided to take some time to contemplate and think about that. And maybe someday she'll reach out to the adoption agency and want to get a hold of me, or maybe one of my half siblings will. But I really just hope that all is well, and maybe someday it'll be cool to have somebody who shares my DNA. But then I started thinking about it. Okay, legit, maybe my story was too long, but legit, am I a Korean ghost? did I really exist? Have I been around for all these years? If she didn't know I was alive. Also, what did birth grandmother tell the adoption agency when she gave me up? What did they tell my adoptive mother? Because she was given a completely different story about why I was chosen. So who knows with the adoption racket, but I'm doing well. I just felt like super drama, and I was like, maybe someday somebody can turn this into like a made-for-TV movie if Lifetime movies are still a thing, or a book deal or something. But keep up the great work. I hope to come back and see you all at the next Tax City. Bye.
Woo. Wow.
That was
that should be
great.
the show.
I'm just like, you know what? Cancel the show.
I'm dumping it,
I'm
guys.
dumping it all. We're gonna call this person up and be like, yo, the show's, you're at Caveat next week.
I'll go back behind the scenes. I'll help write your show. And to me, that's the perfect example of like these. There's so many different stories and so many different types of these stories in the adoptee community.
Wow.
So like that's amazing, and the fact that there was just so many layers that kept going and going. Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, it sounds like almost like, I don't know, like a crime happened. You know what I'm saying? Like the grandma is like, you know, is going to the agency and saying one thing, and there's no like verification of any of these things, and like the mom obviously doesn't know. So I guess like the mom gave birth to this person, and then was told that the baby didn't survive, you know, which is already crazy.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's so terrible. And then 40 goddamn years later, be like, actually, I'm alive, and that, you know, she's a fucking ghost. You know?
Yeah.
I think and I just like hearing her talk and just kind of like even understanding where she's at in her life and her age.
Sure.
To me, it just rings so true, because it sounds like she has that sort of like maturity now to even be able to talk about in such like these types of terms.
Right.
Yeah.
But even the fact that she herself was like, and this to me also rung true of like her being like, she felt bad for blowing up her mom's spot.
Yeah.
Like the
My
fact,
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that she put that on herself as being like, oh my God, I'm so like I messed up. And it's like, well, no, that's not on you.
Right.
Like you were in good faith just trying to understand a little bit more about your and all these factors and things came together. But I do think that's a natural thing for us to do, for us to be like, at some point in our life, oh, it must be on me. Like you were
Right.
saying too,
Right.
with the Japanese culture thing is like there could have been something that maybe I shouldn't have like looked so far or understood so much.
Shouldn't have like turned the rock
Yeah.
over.
Right, and I think this is what happens is, and perhaps why it took me so long as well. Like I was in my 30s when I went, and for before that, people were always like, you haven't gone back? Why haven't you gone back? Oh,
Right.
I didn't have to know. And you're like, well, I don't know. It's kind of hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
You
got
don't
a
know
lot
what
of
you're gonna
stuff going
find.
on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think that's part of it too, is because you're like, good Lord, like these stories always end up presenting adoptees with more questions than answers.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
I think that's something that
it's
can
never
be.
like a clean like,
Right.
oh, here's my mom. We're gonna hug and everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna go have boba.
and that
now.
is something that I go into with my show. Is like this concept of like there's never a clean path to
It's
all
just
of these types of
leads to
things.
more things.
And then I think like the fact that she had so many, like she found one thing and she felt one way, and then the caseworker was like, well, wait a second,
hold
Yeah.
hold on, while you're unpacking that, let me just
Check
rock
this
your
out.
world one more time.
You've been unpacking this one thing for 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's way more complicated.
Yeah, you're
actually.
gonna want to write a TV pilot after this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like kudos to her for like one, sharing it with you guys.
Yeah.
and just
Wow, thank
two,
you.
like being able to saying like thriving and all that
I-
stuff that she's talking about.
I have to say, like, tonally, she was giving such a nice, pleasant voicemail.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just like, hey, guys, how's it going? I'm thriving, surviving, live,
Right.
laugh, love. And I'm just like, let me drop some crazy bombs on you,
Yeah.
right here.
And I think this is the tendency. It's like we hear that you hear a story like that, and I think like you can be shook a little bit or whatever. But I think like hearing her strength and hearing
Yeah.
her clearly like taking some of the like this is crazy, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Hearing that is so indicative of like that's what she needed, that's what she wanted, and I think that's what like me and I'm sure other people is like you want to like put it out there and say, isn't this nuts? Like let's
Yeah.
just laugh
Let's
about
just look
it for
at
a
it,
second.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Or look at it and then like haha, that's crazy.
Right.
It is what you kind of we were talking about earlier, Jenny. It's like we had the aw, you
Right.
know what I'm saying? We were like feeling bad, but actually, for this person's perspective, this is like I am telling it, and I'm
Yes.
inserting myself into this. You
Yes.
know?
I think that she seemingly has a good sense of self and like is seeing this as just learning or like it's not like a pity thing once again. It's
Right,
just
yeah.
like this
Right.
is my story and I'm sharing it.
Wow.
Which honestly, it is a Lifetime movie and I
That's
will
crazy.
be writing
We will
it.
be writing
You
this
will be
together.
watching it,
We'll be starring Constance Wu.
Yeah.
We will. And if this person ever wants to get up and do 10 minutes at Hack City, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes, and it better be funny.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. You better be hilarious.
The audience will probably go, oh. We're just giving you a heads
Right.
up.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So if you want to get and tell us your crazy ass
Wow.
left, right, family stories, that voicemail is 646-809-7231. 646-809-7231. And thanks, Ed, for coming on to the
Yeah,
show.
thank you.
No, thank you. This was great. And again, thank you for the time and the space. And yeah, it's always a pleasure to hang with you guys in any way, shape, or form.
Excited to see what you do. You obviously still have Asian Comedy Festival, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, so that's like, the biggest thing is trying to keep some of the momentum going throughout the year.
Yeah.
I work on
Yeah.
that with executive producer Yao King and Kate Moran, and trying to like keep building it and keep it relevant, and then hit the runway for when it happens.
Yeah.
Next year. So yeah, we're still working on it for sure.
That's awesome, man.
Nice.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
where can our fans follow you and find your work?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at @epopski, EPOPSKI, and that's where I've been posting the stuff for the one person solo show. And then the Asian Comedy Fest is at Asian Comedy Fest.
Awesome.
On Instagram and a bunch of the socials, but we really are most active on Instagram because I don't get any of the other ones. I don't understand them very well. So I feel
scary.
like I can
Yeah.
post a picture and a caption. Great.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's all.
That's great. And you can always follow us on Asian Not Asian, at Asian Not Asian Pod on Instagram. And you can follow me on Instagram at Nice Pants Bro.
And you can find me anywhere at Jenny Arimoto.
We have another Hack City coming. I believe it's September 9th is the next one. September 9th. It's that's a Friday, 7:30 at Union Hall. It'll be me. It's my birthday.
Yeah.
y'all.
September 9th is your birthday?
It's not my birthday that day,
Oh, okay.
but it's my birthday month. So I will probably buy myself some new loafers. And that's what you do when you get to my age and you go,
He's a Virgo. I'm saying it for all the astrology girlies out there.
in the meantime, thanks very much for hanging out with us. Your Asian friends. Jenny, anything else you want to say?
No.
Beautiful.
But I like saying that we're your Asian friends. We are your Asian friends.
We love it. Okay,
Yeah.
and you know what? Tell your stories, man. We want to hear about them. And until then, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.